Okay, looks like I'm alive. Hopefully, I'm alive. There's one person in the thing. So, person, tell me whether I am actually um, heard. Heard. Two people. We're starting to get there. We're getting a few people here. So, let me know whether you can hear me, which is the important part at the moment because of the audio glitches from last time I did this. So, yeah, little Luna is sitting up on top of my computer over here and won't get down, and she won't let me get her down. But how is everybody? Yep. Oh, for sale says you can hear me. Thanks a lot. Yep. There we go. All working. It's working. Luna is looking at me funny because I'm speaking, and she's washing herself. I would show you her with the camera, but it'll mess things up a little bit. How is everybody? Temperature here is 9 degrees, which is kind of warm for this time of year. But we're doing well. Middle-aged geek girls in the next room, snuggled up underneath a blanket that looks like a cabbage, and everything's fine here. As I said, this is an unexpected live stream because the last one people got slightly less than an hour on the live stream because of those audio glitches, which I've fortunately hacked and fixed and remediated. Dick says, "Hi, Luna." Luna, she's not paying attention, Dick. But yeah, so I thought I would do one today, and also it was helpful because I had a very busy weekend, unusually busy, and some of it was movie related, which is kind of interesting. DB Cooper, how you doing? So, what's the weather like where you guys are? We'll do the weather report as always. D Lee's here. Hot here, but we finally have breezes. Good, glad to hear it. Cold here, but I'll finally have espresso. Cheers, guys. So, yeah, one of the nice things on the channel, I'll start out with that. The Sydney Science Fiction Film Festival actually linked to my video about the Blob movies. And I got a bump because they told people, they directed them to the channel and said really lovely things about the channel, which was totally unexpected. Really nice people. Unfortunately, I can't get to the Sydney Science Fiction Film Festival, but they've done me a solid and I really appreciate that. Ralph says, "Oh, Ralph's here as well." Raffalandro says, "Hi, the Rafa from Northern Ireland." There we go. DB Cooper says, "Clouds broken, moved in, heat kicking in. Sunny, warm, and cloudy," says Dick, "but then you do live in Dover." Forsyth, blue skies and warm here in Connecticut. Hi, Deb. How you doing? How's things in Nipaluna? How is the weather? Is there snow on the mountain? And Luna's still on top of this computer. Sometimes she wants to be let out, so she climbs on the computer. Sometimes she wants a cuddle, and so she climbs on the computer. I'm going to see if I can grab her for a cuddle. Just be a sec. Hey, baby. Look, we got her on the live stream. She's going to run away, but she's there on the live stream. 35 degrees in Florida, says Ralph. Hi, Mr. Alan Olson. How you doing? So we got a momentary Luna there. So she's it's 7 o'clock, and 7 o'clock is her time to go outside if somebody lets her out. Zoom's off. Yeah, she does. She's her own thing. Nothing much we can do about that. But yeah, busy weekend, as I said. And I'll tell you about it. Saturday night, I went down to the Backlot cinema in South Melbourne. Ralph says, "I read the skiing in Victoria is going down the drain because of no snow." Yeah, it's been an unusually mild winter here. I only went to the snow here once, which was a tale in itself, and I went up to Falls Creek, and I'd never skied before, and I kind of managed it. But yeah, I'm not that keen on being cold. Because I've got complex PTSD, part of which is from having been unhoused in the middle of a Melbourne winter once. I get a bit freaked out by being too cold. So I'm not really a cold weather person for that reason. Rafa says, does you Do you know any other online physical media disc stores like Orbit DVD, Diabolic DVD, and the Movie Room? They're cool websites. Okay, that's cool. Cal just showed me a cool pic of Luna from earlier. Says Dick, yeah, Luna does her own thing. She's a wild child and a rando, but she started jumping up on the computer. I'm actually moving the whole setup here down that side of the man cave, which allows me to then start working on cleaning it up and getting rid of a lot of stuff and stuff like that. I need to move this setup onto the other desk, which I'm going to be doing. When I do that, she won't be able to climb on the computer because it'll be kind of tucked under a shelf. So we're going to see how that plays out. But anyway, Saturday night, I went to the Backlot Studios in South Melbourne, which has a cinema and it's also an event space. It's got like 50 seats in it, maybe. And the people from New Wave Distribution, New Wave Video, up in Sydney came down for this particular movie. And New Wave, there was a guy, there's Kiri, there's John, there's also Tony, they all do the Imprint podcast for Imprint Video. And like talking about the new releases and things. So they came down. Julian from Collector Creations turned up because he's here in Melbourne. And there were two things that were there on Saturday night. The first one is a noise ensemble. A whole bunch of creative people who make electronic noise did a show for us before the movie. And it was kind of interesting in a weird way. Using it's almost like using every kind of mechanical device as a theremin and doing all these weird kind of industrial sounds for about 20 minutes. Very freaky. Some of them were dressed up. There was a woman not wearing anything under her jacket, but she did have tape over her nipple. There was another woman dressed up as a nun. There were a whole bunch of industrial things. There are all these different avant-garde soundscape designers who were doing this gig before the movie, which I hadn't experienced before. I'm cool with it. I don't think it's my favorite kind of noise, but I liked the fact that I experienced it, and that was fun. And then we saw the movie, and the movie was one New Wave Video put out, and it's a Japanese 1980s Pinku bondage movie called Nun in Rope Hell, which was an experience. It was kind of weird to watch it. I've seen a number of Pinku movies. They are quite transgressive in a lot of ways, and they blew away a lot of the audience who were much younger and hadn't seen Pinku movies. So we watched that, and that was my Saturday night. Is an industrial soundscape of noise and movies where beautiful Japanese women have personal experiences. So that was wild. Let's see what the chat's doing. Deb says no snow on Kunyani. Mostly gone by Saturday. Almost 12 degrees right now. Expecting 16 as a heat wave. Yeah, it's 9 degrees here, and we're a lot further north than you, and you're 12 degrees. Rafa says, do I know Valoria Video? No, I don't. I don't know a lot of the overseas websites. I mostly get my stuff locally. Dig says, being hit by the gremlins again, buffering and the pictures glitching. Is anybody else having that trouble with the picture glitching and the feed buffering? Anyone else having that? Or is it just something that's happening near the White Cliffs of Dover? Let's see what the chat says. Hopefully we are buffering. D. Lee says, I had it a bit. Okay, that's not good. Not sure what's happening there. I've got everything turned off that I could have turned off. Just give me a moment. I'll close down any other windows I've got open and see if that helps a bit. Yeah, Deb says a bit of glitching. That's not good. Yes, but it was a minute ago. It's okay now. Did everybody get what I watched at the movies? Because I can repeat myself here. because yeah, it was a group called Soma who are doing. Okay, sound continued fine. So that was the opposite last time. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll persist and see what we can do. So yeah, it's a group called Soma who did the movie thing, and it was good catching up with the Sydney mob because they're all involved with reviewing imprint releases and doing distribution stuff. And I picked up two things from New Wave Distribution, and they're kind of cool movies. Uh, one of them was a crime movie from the 60s. And it stars Joe Shishido. It's called "A Cult Is My Passport." That one, Joe Shishido. Inside 1960s Japanese gangster movie. Very cool. There are a few extras on it. Inside, we get a bit of that. And I've got Branded to Kill and a couple of other Joe Shishido movies. But they gave me that one. And also a very transgressive movie. And I'm going to show you this quickly because it's a bit naughty. Takashi Miike's Visit a Q. Which I'm told is very wild. I've heard things about this. And I'm looking forward to watching these ones, and I probably will review them for the channel. So I got them, had long chats with the guys. It was just a great evening. Deb says, Summer sounds like my kind of jam. Do they do regular screens? Yeah, they do. They're doing another one where they're going to be showing Visit a Q in about a month. I don't have their website, unfortunately. I did book my ticket because it actually sold out, which is kind of amazing for anything that happens at the back, but it sold out. And it was a lot of fun to do. Last night we did something different. We went and then for my brother-in-law's birthday, we went to Sal's parents' place and did the family thing. But pretty busy weekend. It's going to be a busy week too because I've got this net today. I've got this live stream, and then tomorrow I'm doing the third part of my walk down the upfield train line to Melbourne. So lots of stuff. Rafa says, so I saw a new Australian physical media distribution named New Wave Video. Yeah, I've just been talking about that for 10 minutes, Rafa. Yeah, New Wave Video. Yep, they're doing lots of Asian releases. They're really nice guys too. They were selling T-shirts as well. I didn't get a T-shirt, but they are really, really nice guys, and they're very passionate about weird Asian cinema that's going to mess with people's heads. And they are really, yeah, I like what they do. And they've got, I think, 6 releases at the moment. They're working on more of them. And I didn't talk to them about how they managed it. I just talked to them about movies in general. And we did talk a bit about Joe Shishido, who's this Japanese guy, mostly in the 60s, who got cheek implants. That's why his cheeks look funny. He got cheek implants in the 1960s and then did a whole bunch of gangster movies. Wild stuff. It was a really good experience, and it's good catching up with people you like. Hi, Adam. How you doing? And I am at some stage, according to Tony, going to be on the Imprint podcast, talking about imprint films. Because I like doing that. I enjoyed doing it with the Disconnected. I'm going to do it with the Imprint guys. Hey, Patrick, how you doing? Sal's in the other room. She's resting at the moment. She's not entirely well, but she's going to be doing fine. But yeah, so weird and wonderful stuff. And I really like getting this. This is part of what I mean by curating my collection, putting things that are very much my kind of stuff instead of just going, hey, that's a well-known film. I kind of liked it. I'm going to add it to the collection. Instead of doing that, I'm curating and trying to get things that drilled down to my taste in movies a lot more. So I'm definitely doing a lot of that. The other thing I got, which Imprint sent me, and I'm going to be doing a full unboxing of this one, so I'll just hint at it for you. Thanks, Dick. Sal will be better soon. But I got the Cinema of King Hu box set, which is a whole bunch of Shaw Brothers movies from the 1960s, mostly. A couple of them in the early 1970s. But they're all wuxia movies. I'm not going to do a full unboxing now. But it's a killer box set, and 3 of them are in 4K. Just a wild thing. Asian cinema seems to be dominating my life at the moment, between seeing None in Ropel and getting the new wave distribution movies and getting the King Hu box set and getting the Shaw Shock ones that I got. I'm doing a lot of Asian cinema at the moment. I'm really going to have to see what I can do about that, because I don't want to just be known as the Asian movie guy, because there are people who know a lot more about Asian cinema than I do. Hey, Sal, Deb says hi. Yeah. Rafa says, did you see a Japanese horror trilogy named One Missed Call? Haven't seen it. But East Asian cinema is so vast. You can dive deeply into it, but there are always going to be a lot of things you miss, particularly between Hong Kong and Japan in particular, and South Korea and Thailand and Indonesia. There's a lot of coverage there, and it's so easy to miss things and just not be able to watch all the things that might interest you. I mean, Indonesian superhero cinema is wild. I've done videos about them before. Just, it's such a vast area containing billions of people, literally. It's great to dive into and just discover things about it. And particularly when I do anything about Indonesian cinema. Indonesia's the closest big country to Australia, and it's got well over 100 million people in it. So if I do a video about anything Indonesian, it's going to engage lots and lots of Indonesian YouTubers. Forsale says, I went to the movies yesterday and watched Young Washington, which depicts his participation in the French and Indian Wars. It was from Angel Studios, which I've never heard of before. Excellent movie. I think Angel Studios is one of those Christian film studios. Just give me a moment. They may be right-wing nut jobs. I'm not sure. Let's have a look here. I'm just checking this out. It's a new streaming platform, it says here. And from what I can see, it's it is. It's a Christian studio. They did a version of Animal Farm. They're doing they've got a movie called Heaven is for Real. The Parable of Jesus, the Good Samaritan, a sing-along version of the story of David and Goliath. The Hail Mary, which has got a priest and a nun in it. What else have we got? The Lord's Prayer, Universe Designed. Yeah, it's very much a Christian studio producing things, and some of it looks like AI art. So for me, may not be my kind of thing. Rafa watched 2 Japanese horror films, Pulse 2001 and Noro the Curse. Cool Japanese ghost horror themed supernatural films. Saw them on my physical media disc collection. Yeah, I've got Noroi the Curse, and I've got Pulse as well. Forsale says there was no religion mentioned in the movie. It might have been, if Angel Studios are doing it. From what I can see from their website, they've got 2 streams there. One of which is patriotic American films and Christian propaganda. I'm a more a trauma guy than that kind of thing. If you enjoyed the movie, great, fantastic. Ain't got a problem with it. But may not be my kind of gear. because I am an unashamed leftian and an unashamed atheist. But if they do good movies apart from their ideology, that's fine. I'm not particularly invested in George Washington. If they did one about Ben Chifley, I'd be interested. Or if they did one about Gough Whitlam or a couple of Australian politicians, I'd be interested. But yeah, let's see. I've got a list. I actually made a list last night of things to talk about. Did anybody see all the stuff from San Diego Comic-Con about Marvel? There's some interesting stuff there. I'm going to pivot to my other passion, being superhero movies. And I've embraced that thoroughly. I mean, I'm a locked-in superhero movie fan. I'm going to go see the Spider-Man movie this week and review it. And let's see. D. Lee says, they sound like films Emma Thorne should be reviewing on her channel. She does atheism with wit and considerable charm. Yeah, I like Emma's stuff. She's really great. Deb says, I haven't been especially well, so lots of comfort watching for me. Paddington 2, which is the best movie ever made. Lord of the Rings, Hot Fuzz, but I did go and see The Odyssey on Saturday. Yeah, I know you guys went and saw it on Gold Class, so that's great. It doesn't feel like a 3-hour movie, does it? It really did feel like a much shorter film. Rafa says, an Australian Blu-ray title for Umbrella that I have in my movies is Shutter from 2004, an Asian horror film from Thailand. Yeah, I actually reviewed Shutter when it came out because Umbrella were nice enough to send me a copy of it. Really interesting film about toxic masculinity as much as anything else. I do recommend Shutter from 2004. That is a movie that really should be better known than it is. So anyway, I watched some of the stuff from San Diego Comic-Con, being the superhero movie guy that I am, amongst my many other interests. There's some interesting stuff came out on it. First off, Baby Goose, Ryan Gosling, is going to be in the MCU. He's going to be playing Johnny Blaze, Ghost Rider. They're not using Nicolas Cage for Ghost Rider. They've already passed him off to Spider-Noir. And Baby Goose is going to be the new Ghost Rider in a movie coming out in 2028, which isn't that far away now. I think that's a lot of fun. I think that can possibly be good. Just depends on what tone they take. If they take the supernatural horror tone, it should be interesting. But Baby Goose, for me, is a little bit more of a lightweight. So they may take a slightly more tongue-in-cheek approach to it. We'll wait and see. D. Lee says, Hugh Grant in Paddington 2 is channeling Vincent Price in Theatre of Bloodbath for Children. Yeah, I mean, Hugh Grant is just having so much fun in Paddington 2. Brendan Gleeson playing Knuckles McGinty in Paddington 2 is a lot of fun as well. He really leans into the comedy of it. It's just a movie that doesn't have any notes. It's just all fun all the way. Post-credit sequence is chef's kiss good. Any movie that puts a bit of Sondheim in there has always got a plus from me. Deb says the Odyssey should win all the awards for editing. 3 hours felt like nothing. Yeah, it passed seamlessly. And I really like that. The other weird thing about the Odyssey, it's the only movie I've ever seen that posits the idea of spending 7 years on a beach with Charlize Theron as a bad thing. 7 years on a beach with Charlize Theron. I wouldn't be entirely adverse to that as a concept. But yeah, there's other things. They got Baby Goose playing Ghost Rider, which I'm there for. I want to see what happens with that. They've got a new Black Panther. David Johnson, the English actor who was in The Long Walk and also in that silly Aliens movie. Keep forgetting the name of it, but the one where he plays an android. He's going to be the son of T'Challa in the third Black Panther movie, which Ryan Coogler is directing. I want to see that. That's going to be fantastic. That's coming out in 2028 as well. So there were all these announcements made around Avengers Doomsday, and they had the whole cast of Avengers Doomsday up on stage. And then they bring out David Johnson playing T'Challa. I'm happy for that. Deb says, Paddington 2 makes me so happy. It does. It's a fantastic movie. D. says, are we going to see Elon Musk's historically accurate AI version of the Odyssey? No, we're not. Because Elon Musk he doesn't even have the charisma to be a James Bond villain. Because James Bond villains have a certain riz. Elon Musk is as bland as white rice and as charmless as a piece of snot in a handkerchief. Yeah, Alien Romulus it was, Deb. And David Johnson impressed me as an actor in that. Impressed me as an actor in The Long Walk as well. That guy can carry a movie. I really like him as an actor. People have complained because he's a little bit short. He's not like 5'11" the way Chadwick Boseman was. But then I thought about it because I do tend to think about things. We've had Spider-Man actors, some of whom are 6'1". Andrew Garfield's quite tall. And then we get Tom Holland, who's like 5'7". It doesn't matter how tall the actor is playing a superhero, particularly. So having an actor who's not tall playing T'Challa's son, I haven't got a problem with that. It's just people being shitty for being shitty's sake. Forsyth says the original Ghost Rider was on horseback, not a motorcycle. Have a few of the original comics published in the early 50s. Yeah, they adapted it. And they've actually had a retro. In fact, in one of the Ghost Rider movies that Nick Cage did, I think they did have a previous Ghost Rider on horseback in one of them, if I'm not mistaken. Probably the first one. Yeah, Diddley says Tom Cruise and Alan Ladd didn't do badly for their heights. Yeah, absolutely. Deb says David Johnson was the only good thing about that movie. Yeah, it was in Alien Romulus. He was the most valuable player in that. He really gave us a complex character with shifts of tone as the android was reprogrammed. Just a really powerful actor who's like got the riz to be magnetic on the screen. I think it's a really good choice by Ryan Coogler to get David Johnson to play T'Challa II. So yeah, all that stuff lets me geek out and have a good time. And apparently, Avengers Doomsday is also going to have Deadpool in it because Ryan Johnson was not Ryan Johnson. Anyway, the guy plays Deadpool turned up. It's early in the morning. I apologize. Turned up to in at San Diego Comic-Con playing Deadpool. Rafa says, me and my girlfriend and my sister watched a film starring Jared Leto, Marlon Wayans, and Jane Connolly. Requiem for a Dream. Yeah. Requiem for a Dream is a weird movie. It's not a happy movie, but it's definitely a weird movie. It's really crazy. I watched it once and I'm probably not going to watch it again. Ryan Reynolds, sorry. Yep. Thank you, Patrick. My coffee hasn't kicked in yet. I do apologize, everybody. Adam says, I didn't like the look of Doomsday from the trailer. Way too slathering in SFX. It's a Marvel superhero movie. It's going to have SFX up to its eyebrows. It's just the nature of it. But I'm very invested in this storytelling that Marvel's doing. Whole bunch of different genres, whole bunch of different things, a really wide universe. Nobody has done anything approaching this ever in cinema. And from 2008 to now, they've been telling a complex series of stories with overlapping characters, an incredibly wide universe. They've got science fiction, they've got horror, they've got magic, they've got superhero gear in it. And they blend it all really well. I like what they're doing. And doing something on this scale where you get a whole bunch of A-list actors. And I think they got 23 of them in Avengers Doomsday. These guys are playing the popular movie game at an elite level. Nobody has even tried to do this before. There are so many plates on those sticks spinning in these movies, and it is going to make all the money. People are so invested in that particular corner of the superhero thing. They're going to watch it. They're going to enjoy it, and on the merch alone, they're going to make a shit ton of money. Probably needs to make about 2 billion to break even. I think it's going to do more than that in business. But what do I think the budget on Doomsday is? I hear 300 to 400 million. A lot of that is paying the staff, paying the actors. But one thing, I mean, whether you like superhero movies or not, and I know some people are talking about superhero burnout, which I think it's not something I think exists. I think it's more people just want to watch different kinds of movies. I think that one of the things that particularly Marvel and DC to a certain extent, give them credit, do well. Every time they make one of these movies, every time they make one of these bombastic, over the top, star laden, spectacular movies, they're giving a shit ton of people jobs. They're not just doing the Elon Musk and doing things with AI prompts. Every physical artifact in those movies is made by somebody who's getting paid. Every special effects bit, every music sting, every bit of soundtrack, enormous supporting casts and casts of extras, costume designers, makeup designers, special effects technicians. These movies give so many people work because they are on such a monumental scale that even if you don't like that particular genre of movies, all respect to them for paying the people and not just taking the easy option of getting a server farm to do the work for them. Solar Seven Koto, hi. Bit late with the weather, mostly cloudy and windy here in Oldham. Okay, well, that's not good. You need just a little bit of warmth, a little bit of sunshine. Deb says, I love the Doomsday trailer, but I wrote my final year thesis on Marvel villains. Good. And I love the fact that Doctor Doom is going to be more powerful than Thanos. And the Doctor Doom they've got in here is stealing powers from across the multiverse. And I've heard Doctor Doom's accent with Robert Downey Jr. doing a Latvian accent, which is a place that doesn't exist. Doesn't sound anything like Tony Stark. Adam says, Oldham is always cloudy and windy. Well, it's good to have branding. Okay, Mr. Alan Olson, see you later. Thanks for being part of the live stream. Appreciate it. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to go. I'm going to enjoy it. And I'm going to have fun. And I may even get a choc top ice cream. Thursday, I think I'm going to go and see the new Spider-Man movie. I like Tom Holland as Spider-Man. I want to see where it goes. I want to see how it links into the Avengers Doomsday thing because there will be lead-ins to that. I'm just going to ride with it. I mean, not every movie has to be Tokyo Story or Citizen Kane. Sometimes you want to go for a roller coaster ride. Rafa says, so Oceania, as in Australia and New Zealand, they have two big movie studio companies named Village Roadshow Studios. Looks like Aussie film company's sister from Warner Brothers and New Line Cinema. Yeah, possibly. I'm not that invested in the movie companies themselves. I'm more into the video distribution companies, things like Umbrella and Imprint, Madman to a certain extent, New Wave Distribution, the new guys in there. There are a whole bunch of small startups who are getting the rights to things and distributing them. And we're doing well with that aspect of things. One of the things I do get pissed off with is the fact that the Australian government gives money to overseas productions that are filmed in Australia. And I'm not sure we get our money back on some of those because some of them die in the ass. Big budget Baz Luhrmann films often don't make their money back. And if they do make their money back, the money made by having those productions here in Australia doesn't really stay in Australia. We're financing overseas companies to make movies, and I have a slight problem with that. D. says, yeah, Kaylee Hoddle, who played Gia in the Godzilla movies, died after a car crash. Yeah, she played the girl who could communicate with Kong in sign language. Yep, absolutely. Anybody young who dies, it's tragic. But she was a big advocate for people with the disabilities. Though people who are deaf don't see it as a disability. Yeah, it is sad. Rafa, do I have any DVDs, Blu-rays, 4K discs from Studio Canal? Yeah, I've got a bunch of stuff. I've got a bunch of stuff from everyone. But yeah, so let's see. We'll cross that off. I found out something interesting about, how everybody's on the nostalgia train and people love the things they saw when they were 8 years old. And which is why Star Wars has such long legs as a franchise. People are trying to recapture the buzz they got from watching the original Star Wars movie when they were 8 years old. That phenomenon. There's actually a name for it now, and people have been doing studies on why people go back to the media and the intellectual properties that they enjoyed when they were 8 years old. It's called Main Street theory because it's the buzz Disney fans get when they walk down the main street of Disneyland. It's a buzz they get, and a nostalgic feel, and a feel of safety and coziness that they get when they're doing it. I've never done it because I've never been to a Disneyland, but it's called Main Street theory. And I'll read you what it says about Main Street theory. Sometimes things we loved as kids still have a place in our lives because they remind us who we were before the world got so heavy. So basically, they remind you of who you were as a child. And it's a definite psychological phenomenon. It's why there are so many Disney adults and things like that. And I find it interesting that, for a start, it's been monetized by Disney to an enormous extent. They made billions and billions of dollars based on Main Street theory, that they can help people recapture the coziness they felt when they were kids watching, whether it's a 90-year-old person who saw Dumbo in the cinema, or Snow White, or Star Wars, or Moana for your very young people. Moana is a place in New South Wales. But people wrap that around themselves psychologically. And I was thinking about this in my own context, and I've got a different life experience as a child than a lot of other people. So people get reminded of how the world was for them before things got so heavy. For me and for many other people, things were already heavy when I was a kid. I experienced some very heavy things as a child. So Main Street theory doesn't particularly relate to me. I don't feel cozy when I revisit media I consumed as a child. I like it, and I like the cinema. May be my Main Street theory. Being in a cinema and watching a movie is a comfort for me. It's a place where I feel less on edge, less alert, less jangly than I do in most other places. For me, going to a cinema feels like other people feel when they go to church, but to a lesser extent and with more popcorn. But Main Street theory is an interesting phenomenon. I'm sure it's been studied enormously by Disney, by Marvel, by DC, by a whole bunch of people, maybe including Angel Studios, that they find a way to target things that trigger Main Street theory in people and make them feel that they can regress to a simpler time in their lives. and enjoy media at a simpler level than they do normally. I mean, I think that's a really interesting phenomenon. For me, it's skewed a lot by my childhood experiences, which wasn't a safe time and place for me. But for many people, because of their circumstances, going to a place like Disneyland or consuming certain media was incredibly safe for them. What do you guys think? I find it an interesting phenomenon. I find the whole Disney adult thing an interesting phenomenon as well. But for me, yeah, as I said, I like watching Marvel superhero movies and DC superhero movies and all that kind of gear. But I don't think that I have the same relationship to that, to feel good cinema, that a lot of other people have. Adam says, I wish Disney would be more adventurous. They did try that. There were movies like Crater which got basically banned by Disney because of the ideological basis for that science fiction movie. Disney is risk adverse. They're a company whose product is merchandise, whether that merchandise is movies, usually on streaming, or physical artifacts. I'm not sure they particularly care about being adventurous as long as the cash flow's there. Hi, Franny. Evidently, the US flags on Main Street don't have 50 stars. They have the correct number of stars for the time that Disney himself was pining for. That's a good point. A lot of Disneyland, but if you look particularly at the live action Disney movies from, say, the early first half of the 1960s, there was a lot of nostalgia for early 20th century Americana, by which they mean white Americana, slightly rural, small town Americana. That was Walt Disney's comfort zone. And he parlayed that into a number of things like Follow Me, Boys, and a bunch of other films that were made live action by Disney, mostly as vanity projects for Walt. And they were all about that nostalgia for early 20th century America, before World War One, before they sent the boys off to Europe. That is probably the founding ethos of Disneyland and the Disney empire itself. Franny says, trauma really does mess with Main Street theory behavior. I know that's true for myself as well. Yeah. I mean, it's a complex problem and it's a complex situation. But I still find joy in a lot of things. Main Street theory doesn't apply to me because I never had that safety and that security and that coziness that it depends on. But I still love a lot of things. I'm still passionate about a lot of things. And I still get joy from a lot of movies. But it's very much a different phenomenon for me than it is for a lot of people. D. Lee says, I think some people whose lives aren't so good now want to be reminded of times when it wasn't. People whose past weren't good want to make good memories of now. Yeah, I can see that. I think also, in some ways, attitude counts. Yeah, I get depressed as much as other people. There are times when I'm down. There are times when I'm up. There are times when my PTSD kicks in, or seasonal affect disorder, all that kind of stuff. But one of the things I do try to do is seek out the stuff that I enjoy and seek out joy. And just doing the bloody live stream does that for me. I love chatting with people about this stuff and having that as a part of what I do and who I am is therapeutic as well as being a lot of fun. Deb says, Main Street theory is complicated for me too. My sister died when I was 11, and much of my early cinema experiences were bound up with her. I'm sorry to hear that, Deb. I understand that trauma, yeah. Main Street theory is for some people, but not for others. But I think it does explain some things. But yeah, I'm sorry about that. Hi, Cayenne. Forsyth says, I'm nostalgic for single screen movie theaters. I've been no, 2 of them, and in the last month I've been to 2 of them. I went to the Astor, which is a 100-year-old cinema here in Melbourne, and also the Backlot, which is a much smaller cinema, is a single screen. And they do have a focus about them that multi-screen cinemas don't. Multi-screen cinemas seem a lot more diffuse and diluted, but single screens, everybody in the building is there for the same purpose. They're there for the same movie. They're there to have the same fun. So I definitely understand the attraction of single screen cinemas. And little boutique cinemas do that a lot better than the big boys because they've got that single focus. And there's a stronger sense of community to a single screen cinema than to a multiplex, even though I like the idea of having choices when you go to the cinema. There is still a place for single screens. But yeah, there's only a couple of single screeners here in Melbourne because the economics are complicated and don't lend themselves to single screens. The Astor only survived because at one stage it was bought by a private high school, and then Palace Cinemas bought it and wanted to retain it. It's a heritage listed building, so it's got to be kept there. But it survived mostly because of sharp business deals that were done to help it survive. Friday says, my local cinema was the first cinema in Odeon to be converted from a single screen to a 3-screen cinemas in the UK. Dog's Dad says, yeah, a live stream. Yeah, I'm doing the live stream today, Dog's Dad, because the last one was only half a live stream. It was only an hour long. And so I thought it was only fair to kind of pick up the slack. So what's going to happen, just so everybody knows, there won't be another live stream next week. There'll be one in 2 weeks. I'm changing the weeks around. But I felt so bad about those technical glitches on the last live stream. And I found a whole bunch of stuff I wanted to talk about. So I went with this week. Deb says, all those theories and media studies, though, Main Street is just a framework to use for analysis, a lens to look through. Yeah. And I mean, for me, that different thing is from the age of about 8, cinemas were a sanctuary for me. They were getting away from the really horrible things in my life as a child. And that gives me a different but a powerful relationship with cinema. Walking into a flea pit, finding a comfortable seat, watching a movie, getting away from the wider world for a couple of hours has always been a balm to me. It's always been a comfort. And I totally understand the reasons why. I totally understand the fact that they were a survival mechanism for a traumatized child. But now they're much, much more there. A place for me to see things I can talk to people about and share with people and encourage people to experience. But also, at the essence, they are my temple, my church, my synagogue. Cinemas are that for me. They fulfill the same psychological purpose as religion does for some other people. Franny says, at Dog's Dad, I had the same reaction. I finished watching a video about LRDG and there it was. Yeah, the live stream. I only decided yesterday that I was going to do this live stream, so I'm sorry people weren't given more of a heads up. Kayan says, funny thing with American popular culture. When I was growing up in Ireland in the 80s, watching US TV shows and films, I thought it was the coolest place on earth. Now I find most of it extremely shallow. It does depend on the stuff. There are some really fine bits of cinema coming out of America, as there are from everywhere else in the world. But there's also the shallow end of the pool. Adam says, cinema's my therapy couch, maybe. No, I've actually got a psychologist that I talk to every 5 weeks. And Betty's my therapy couch. But cinema is a place I can relax. Dog's Dad says, how are me and Mag and the felines doing? We're doing fine. We did stuff with the family yesterday. We're bopping around. We're just waiting for springtime to turn up. We're just living the life and doing our own thing. And we're kind of planning for the future and working things out, just the same as everybody else. We're doing okay. And the cats are the cats. They are themselves. And Jill, the older cat, who's 14, 15 now, is getting a little more cuddly. When I go and watch movies on the big screen in the other room, the 4K TV, she'll jump up on the couch with me, and she's not a cat you can pick up and cuddle. She's not comfortable with that, but she will let you pat her, and she'll purr and she'll settle down. And she seems to like Hong Kong wuxia movies, so she'll sit with me with that. So it's nice. And Luna just jumps on me while I'm doing things here at the computer. It's not a bad life. So what have other people been watching? Yep, cool cats. Delia says, I rate Marx Brothers films as my go-to when things get lousy. They helped me through a very bad time in my life. I'm glad you had that, because you need something at times. Dog Dad says, since we're all getting older, we like your cats cuddly too. It varies. I did get a MAGA guy saying he loves watching my videos, but he hates it when I talk politics, so don't talk politics. I got another one of those, but he was very polite and very gentlemanly. And I responded in kind, and we disagreed strongly. He was a big Trump supporter. And I pointed out that a psychotic rapist is probably not the best person to lead a country. So Simon says, they keep getting interrupted by advertisements for A-books. Do not need any pimping for A-books, given how much I've spent over there over the years. Sorry about that, but it pays the bills. Friday's movie haul today from CEX. £9 for the 1960s Batman movie, which I saw in the cinema. Oliver, didn't like that movie for some reason. I think maybe because I saw it as a kid and it was about a kid being abused by a beetle. And Up the Junction. I got the imprint version of Up the Junction, but I haven't rewatched it yet. For Sale says, do you get that annoying Nicole Kidman introduction every time you go to the movies? No. Different movie stuff. We get ads for Mitsubishis, Catholic high schools, and a couple of other things here. And then we get a lot of trailers. But we don't get Nicole Kidman. I mean, Nicole Kidman, for me, is problematic in some ways. Very fine actress who has renovated the front of her head into the uncanny valley. And I find that quite disturbing. Kayan says, watch Back to the Future Part 2. Biff as a casino owner was apparently based on Trump. It was released in 1989. Yeah, I got a few copies of a magazine called Spy Magazine from the 1980s, which was based in New York. It was a satirical magazine. And even in the 1980s, when Spy Magazine came out, they lacerated Donald Trump at that stage when he was just a kind of socialite, property magnate. They were scathing to that guy at the time, and I love having that magazine. Up the Junction, Robert Downey Sr. Yeah, cool. Dog's Dad says, I just finished watching an upcoming movies 2026. It seems that Apple Plus streaming are leaning hard on science fiction. Am I misreading this? No, they've been doing science fiction for years. They did Asimov's Foundation books as movies. They're doing, I think it's a series of William Gibson's Neuromancer. They really know their science fiction. Apple Plus, at least as far as streaming is concerned, are heavy hitters when it comes to science fiction. They're doing For All Mankind, alternate universe about the space race. They are the goats when it comes to streaming science fiction because they know the genre. They put the money into it, and they have a strong sense of what makes good science fiction. which is why I'm really optimistic about Neuromancer. I did spend a little time in the early 90s at a convention hanging around with William Gibson. Lovely guy, Bill Gibson. He says I could do with some renovation. Adam says they won't let you in Hollywood unless you renovate the front of your head. That's the problem. At some level, it comes down to, at a certain level, Hollywood encourages women to disfigure themselves, whether it's putting bags of silicone into their chests or having their faces sculpted into abstraction. I think that's really problematic. Franny says, I finally got around to watching V in my film Night Friends and followed up with the Gogol TV series, fictional story about the author of V, and it forms a sequel to it. V is fantastic. The original 1960s V. Fantastic. It was the first Russian horror movie in ages, and it's creepy as hell to this very day. Franny says, really enjoy Silo. I haven't dipped into Silo, but I hear great things about it. I'm also partway through Forbidden Empire, which is a sequel to V as well, says Franny. Kayan says, I've been talking about making Neuromancer for years. Yeah, it's happening. Originally, Vincenzo Natali was attached to it. And I think Andrew Nicole had it before that. But they're doing it, and it's the thing is that you got to remember, Neuromancer was 1979, I think, if I'm not incorrect, and it blew away the literary science fiction world. It was street level. It was international in aspect. It was punk as fuck, and it triggered the whole cyberpunk movement as much as anything else did. Even though Bruce Bethke was the person who invented the word cyberpunk, and it wasn't William Gibson that everybody thinks it is. It's a retro future in some ways, but I want to see what they do with it. I'm invested in going and seeing it, and I'm looking forward to it because, I mean, I read all the novels. I read Neuromancer, I read Count Zero, Mona Lisa Overdrive, all of those novels set in that universe. Really enjoyed them all. And I do love William Gibson as a writer. Dog State says, Neuromancer gave me Johnny Mnemonic type survive. That's because Johnny Mnemonic was set in that's a similar universe by William Gibson. V's very Evil Dead at times. Maybe Raimi saw it. I wouldn't doubt that Raimi saw it. And Deb says V is fantastic. Silas Alvin Cocktail says, hope that Rogue Trooper in 2027 doesn't disappoint. I think Rogue Trooper is interesting because it's an intellectual property that few people know about. If they do it right, it may find an audience, but it may also tank. It just depends on how they do it. Dog says, what about the reboot of Resident Evil on Apple Plus? Haven't seen it. I'm not that invested in Resident Evil, but I might give it a look. Kane says, are you sure you're not mixing it up with a chick flick called Neuromancer? No, I'm not. I've got all the novels. I was so invested in cyberpunk stuff. There's William Gibson, there's Pat Cadigan, there's Bruce Sterling. A whole bunch of different writers were doing really crazy good stuff. In the late 70s, early 80s, 90s, cyberpunk stuff, giving it an international viewpoint. And as Gibson said, the future is here already. It's just not evenly distributed. And that philosophy tells us the world. There are people who are still making their own pottery and cooking their food in the pottery over an open fire. And there are people who are nuking things in a microwave oven. The world is really diverse. And I think the cyberpunk movement embraced and displayed that diversity more than anything in science fiction ever had. Yeah, Ralph, Rogue Trooper as in 2000 AD. I think, and Adam says, I think the new Resident Evil looks very experiential, hopefully a wild ride. Yeah, it just depends. One of the problems is there's just so much stuff coming out, and I don't want to complain about that because I think it's good that a lot of different things and a lot of different projects are coming out, and none of us is going to have the time to watch them all. But it's so good to be able to shop in that particular place and go, yep, I might dip in and watch Neuromancer, or I might watch Spider Man, or I might watch Avengers Doomsday, or I might watch a long series like Foundation or Silo or any of those ones. Or I might watch Ride or Die with Hannah Waddingham and Octavia Spencer. We are so rich with choice. And even if you don't pay for streaming services, free streaming services like Tubi and here in Australia, ABC iView and SBS On Demand give such a wealth of choices on demand. Like when you want to watch it, it will be there to watch. We're just so fortunate to have so much choice because you've got to remember, probably most of us grew up in a movie desert where if you wanted to watch a movie, you either saw it in the cinema or you waited every 2 or 3 years it would turn up on TV if you were available to watch it at that particular moment. I'm really aware and delighted by the fact that we've got the choice to watch what we want when we want. And that, yes, it does piss off studios who want you to rent everything forever. So if I've got a physical media copy of Visitor Q, that's detached from the satanic mills of streaming. I'm really aware of all that stuff, and that fascinates me as well. Friday says there were a few proto cyberpunk books in the late 60s, early 70s. Yeah, John Brunner did them. Philip K. Dick, of course. John Sladek. There were progenitors of cyberpunk, absolutely. Rafa says, my friend from Galway, Republic of Ireland, complained that he and his wife ordered standard Blu-ray titles from Viavision. When it arrived, it was scratched and damaged a lot. Then they've got to contact them and get them to fix that. Yeah, can CEX polish things? That might be fun. Might be a solution. Ash vs. Evil Dead is currently on Tubi in Australia, says Deb. Yeah, that is a lot of fun. Did I walk the next section yesterday or was the weather too shitty? Says Rob. I'm doing it tomorrow. I release on Thursdays normally, so I've still got time to do it. Because I had such a bloody busy weekend, I kind of talked it over with Sal, and I'm going to walk the third part of my walk down the upfield line tomorrow, and I'll have it ready for Thursday. KN says, the use of kangaroos as part of the delivery system in Australia is probably how it got damaged. You try getting a kangaroo to do anything. I dare you. You think cats are random. Kangaroos are even more bloody random than cats. Even swamp wallabies and the smaller macropods are randos. Rafa says, I got CEX in the UK, but could not be sure to have CEX in Irish Republic. I'll talk to my Irish friend and his wife, maybe they're available. Yeah. If you get a damaged disc from anybody, contact them. They don't like sending damaged goods to people. They will fix it because it's good PR and it's something that's factored into their business models to replace damaged things. Dog's Dad, as a kid watching 60s TV, revisiting these shows like The Invaders have a different vibe. Do I have similar experiences? Yeah, I see a lot more into the intention of the people who create old series that I rewatch. And I see the pluses and minuses. I mean, I might watch some old ITV series like The Champions and Jason King, Department S, things like that. And yeah, there is a lot of male gaze in those series. But they're trying to tell adventure stories on fairly small budgets And I can see the budgetary limitations, but I also see interesting things like the groovy character actors who turn up in old TV series, some of whom had careers in cinema 20 years before, some of whom only spent their entire careers doing television. But all of them are kind of interesting, and all of them bring a different energy to the roles because they're different characters. I do see it a lot differently than I saw it when I was watching it originally because I was really invested in the stories. But for me, rewatching a lot of those series is, hey, look, there's an interesting set. I see how they did that special effect. I saw how they edited that to make an effect in an action scene work. And there are so many groovy character actors who went from series to series doing different work, but all of it really interesting. Deb says, I do think many Australians only see kangaroos on TV or zoos these days. We see them, if I go out if I drive down the Ocean Road, which I can do fairly easily from here, it's only like 40 minutes drive away from here, the Great Ocean Road. You go there at night time and there are swamp wallabies and kangaroos lining the road, and there are koalas up the trees and all that kind of thing. So it doesn't take much effort to really see kangaroos and other native wildlife if you really want to just go out of the city a tiny bit. Yeah, and I'm Alexandra Bastido. Friday says, I wish there'd been more series of the invaders. Yeah, it was Larry Cohen invented the invaders too. Larry Cohen went on to much better and bigger things. But yeah, those series, we definitely watch them differently than we did when we were children. But it doesn't mean we don't get full value. We don't get all the juice out of the fruit because we're seeing sets and edits and character actors doing things, and we understand the mechanisms of the plots. And even though they are very formulaic in a lot of cases, those old series, seeing how the pieces fit together is still an interesting thing. I watched a few episodes of The Champions last month, and yeah, I must have watched 6 of them. And yes, they're all formulaic, but they tried to do different things. They were focusing on different stars in different episodes. And there was always the pre-title sequence where one of the champions will demonstrate their superpowers in some sneaky way. And then they get into the plot. And they actually did, toward the end of the series, start doing more complex and psychologically dark episodes, which I really appreciated. And I think that, particularly for a formulaic TV series, which didn't particularly have a strong continuity between episodes, there were really some interesting writing going on there. And they did give the actors some meat to chew on. And I didn't notice that when I was watching as a kid, but I appreciate it as an adult. Dog says, so there's still wildfire is still a problem in my country. Not at the moment, but this summer we probably will get some, and I will see this bushfire smoke. Fortunately, we're not in an area that's prone to bushfires, but not too far away they are, and we do get bushfire smoke. I mean, I know North Americans are complaining about it now, but that's been part of our lives for the last 40 years, that heavy bushfire smoke coming over. There we go. Adam, you've had that answered for you by Mick507, Peter Vincent. Friday says, I don't think the invaders could be rebooted. The media environment about aliens has changed so much that the stories wouldn't logically play the same way these days. Yep, absolutely. Some things are of their time, and they're about political paranoia of the time as well. Yeah. Bad actors, whether they're aliens or from a foreign government working inside the country, lands as a concept. Kane says, I bought a box set of a UK series called Thriller around 15 years ago. Still haven't watched all the episodes. They really are good. Thriller really had some great writing and some great acting in it. Deb says, speaking of male gaze, I watched The Irrefutable Truth About Demons, a 2000 New Zealand horror movie with Carl Urban, with a totally inverted gaze. I'm sure they took every opportunity to get Urban's shirt off. Hey, that's not a bad thing at all. And I'm much more aware of male gaze these days than I have been in the past. Partly because I saw None in Rope Hell Saturday. And that is 100% male gaze. And the director was stupping the lead actress in between rope bondage scenes. Yeah, it's I think, and also the weird thing is, I went and saw None in Rope Hell at the backlot. There were a lot of women in the audience who were really engaged with the movie. There were, it would have been like 60-40 male female, but there were a lot of women who were interested in Japanese pinku bondage cinema of the 1980s, which I find kind of interesting. And I wouldn't dare hazard the guess at the reasons why they were there, but they were obviously enjoying the movie, and good on them too. I think movies like that are being reevaluated in a different context now, which is kind of interesting. Deb says, as a straight woman, it was a particularly pleasant experience watching Carl Urban with his shirt off. Hey, movies evoke emotional responses in people. And there is a kind of cultural taboo against movies evoking an emotional sense of sexual arousal. And they always get put down for that. But it's just as valid as being frightened by a horror movie or being delighted by a musical. If a movie turns you on, good. I don't think it's any less valid than a horror movie being scary or a musical delighting you or a comedy making you laugh. I think all emotional responses in movies are valid. Kane says, male gaze, female gaze is just human nature. Yeah, but I think we should have an awareness of it, because there are movies that have a male gaze, but I wouldn't want to see a movie made by somebody in the manosphere, for instance, where they're normalizing slapping women and calling them sluts and spitting on them and putting them down. I don't think we should be unaware of the perils of a particular kind of male gaze. References today I received from Vision's Home Video a DVD standard Blu-ray title named Exit 8. I want to see Exit 8. I know Umbrella are releasing it here, and I believe they're sending me a copy, so I'm looking forward to watching Exit 8. Florian says, ironically, the phrase of male gaze was coined by a man, John Berger, in the series Way of Seeing. It can be found on YouTube. Yeah, I think it's a useful term. I really find it useful when I'm reviewing movies to notice when the male gaze is focused on. And if you're aware of the male gaze too, you can't really be pissed off when the female gaze is being engaged in the movie. Dog's Dad says, what's the future of the Blob? They keep talking about remaking it, but it's never got any traction. Most recently, I think in about 2020, they were talking about remaking it, but it never happened yet. Dealey says, whatever tickles your pickle as long as it's consensual. I agree. Absolutely, 100%. That's probably the criterion we need to use. That's why I didn't like Death Wish 2. The abuse and murder of women was just used as an excuse for a middle-aged man to get his jollies as a vigilante. I really had a problem with that movie rewatching it. Rafa says, Asian film named Manhunt in 76. Awesome standard Blu-ray box set released from Umbrella. Cool. Way of Seeing is great. Not seen it in 40 years or so. I really should watch that. Let me just get my pen out. I bought a box of 12 of these pens. They're really good ones. Write really well. I'm just in love with these particular pens at the moment. Dealey says Death Wish was fridging before the term was invented. It was. It's those kind of male vigilante movies I'm not keen on, because the existence of women is just an excuse for men to act toward their worst natures. And also there's the racism aspect where most of the people movie vigilantes kill are of ethnic minorities or black people or whatever. That stuff doesn't land well with me. Franny says, oh, it's a fantastically useful term. Episode 2, Women and Art from Ways of Seeing. I recommend everyone watch it. Thanks, Franny. I appreciate that info because I will watch it. Deb says, yeah, the gaze is important, not just in movies. It's deeply embedded in semiotics, which inform all media, especially advertising. Yeah. And also social media influencers. Some YouTube channels rely heavily on the male gaze. And women, of course, monetize it by doing that. There are younger female YouTubers I follow, but there are always the people who have got something important to say. And I learn a lot watching those particular channels. I don't watch them because the women are young and attractive, which in some cases they are. I watch them for the kind of content that they provide, which is usually a critique of the worst aspects of men online and also the worst aspects of some women online. I like the social commentary we get with a lot of YouTubers. Forsyth says, have I seen Daughters of Horror, which the title can be seen in the market original blob? Yeah, I did see it a couple of times. It's a kind of freaky, low-budget movie. I think Ed McMahon did the voiceover in that movie. I haven't seen it for a long time, but I have seen it. Adam says, I'm telling everyone. What are you telling everyone? I've got to go back on the chat, I suppose. Ways of seeing. Yep. I'm definitely going to track that one down, because part of what I'm doing with this channel and part of what I'm doing watching movies is learning. I'm not sitting on my laurels and pontificating from on high with people. I'm constantly finding new things that intrigue me and then sharing them. And if Ways of Seeing helps me with that, I'm there. I will love doing that. I love learning. I mean, one of the best and worst things that happened to me was leaving school at 15 because I had to educate myself. I needed to learn the ways the world were. And there was a stage for 2 years when I was unemployed as a teenager. I would read 5 or 6 books a week from my local library, and libraries are just so fucking important. Libraries are repositories of human knowledge in so many ways in there. And again, like cinemas, they're sanctuaries for people like me, as I was then. And that movies, books and learning are something I've constantly done. And so even though I've seen tens of thousands of movies over my lifetime, I keep learning new things. I keep seeing new things and keep finding out things I didn't know. And I love that. It's just so integral to who I am that I'm never going to stop doing it. And then people tell me about Ways of Seeing, and I'm going to fully embrace that. And thanks for helping with that. Kayan says, love the Death Wish films. Don't tell anyone. You can love them if you like. I have a different experience of them. I respect your opinion as much as I embrace my own. Dogstat says, remakes, reboots, and sequels. Isn't anything original anymore? What's the next Plan 9 from Outer Space reimagining? I don't think anybody is going to, because the original is so perfect to film. But I'm going to embrace that. I don't mind a remake. I think probably the nice one was 58 Blob, 1988 The Blob. One is respectful of the other and does what it does very well. I think if you're going to reboot something, You've got to show us what you bring to the table, and you got to bring to the table something that was unrealized in the original. Don't just remake something because you enjoyed the original and it gave you a jolly when you were 10. Remake it because you've got something new to say and you can contextualize it for a different audience at a different time. I think that's important. And the remake of The Blob, which Chuck Russell, who died this week, made, is a very different film from a very different era than the 1958 one. And I think it does what it does incredibly well. Mystery Man's here. I can't agree that all emotional responses are valid. I don't know that all those emotional responses are valid. If someone gets aroused by a movie where women get smacked around, if somebody gets aroused by seeing Martyrs, the new French extremity film, I'd have a problem with that. So any emotional response, those emotional responses aren't valid. But I think it's okay if a movie arouses you sexually. It's okay if it scares you. It's okay if it makes you laugh. It's okay if it makes you comfortable and happy. All of those are valid. Dealey says, who would you cast in a big budget remake of Plan 9 from Outer Space? I get all the actors and actresses that have had too much plastic surgery. Just put them all together in that film. DB Cooper says, not looking forward to Escape from New York remake. I can see your point there, DB. I'm going to take a look at it because I'll probably review it for the channel, and if it's bad, I'll review it honestly. I like the original. I like Escape from LA as well, which is a lot of fun. But as far as the remake's concerned, it seems cashing in. But if I'm proved wrong, I'll admit that I'm proved wrong. Kayan says, I picked up a lot of my historical knowledge from the Carry On films. I'm not sure all of that is historically accurate. I'll just give you a little bit of a heads up on that. Mystery Man says, neo-Nazis laughing and applauding watching Schindler's List is an example of an invalid response. I agree, absolutely. Adam says, James Corden as Tor. James Corden shouldn't be in movies. I dislike that man with a passion. Franny says, the shock of the new is about modern art. Fantastic series that educated teenage me to understand, appreciate, and enjoy modern art. It's a top recommend from me. That reminds me, Franny, I was never into modern dance, but a friend of mine's brother was in the Australian dance company. And we got really cheap tickets to see the entire season of the Australian Dance Theatre. And I saw that and it blew me away. They did Homer's The Odyssey in abstract form as a dance, and it worked. And ever since then, I've never dismissed any art form because I didn't know anything about it. And I haven't gone to see more modern dance since then, unfortunately. But it gave me an appreciation of just how masterful top level dance theatre is. Yeah, Franny, The Shock of the New is written and presented by Robert Hughes. Yeah. Dogstad last chat asked if IMAX is worth the premium ticket price. Time ran out before a response. It is if you want to see it. I mean, it's very subjective. I probably will go and see IMAX one time just to talk about it on the channel. But it's about $47 Australian minimum to see an IMAX movie, and I'd have to consider carefully and strategically what I would see for that price. If you want the experience, go for the experience of seeing IMAX. I mean, Christopher Nolan says that people should see The Odyssey in IMAX because it was filmed in that format. I can respect that, but I don't necessarily have to do it. We've only got one IMAX cinema in Melbourne, and it's booked out until late springtime. So probably next year at some stage I might go see something there. But it's very subjective. If you want to spend the money on it, go for it. If you don't feel it's going to be worth it, don't do it. It's an economic rather than an aesthetic judgment you've got to make to see an IMAX movie. Deb says, just caught up with the chat. Feminist theory, Laura Mulvey coined the phrase male gaze. Thank you. Let's see. D. says, I'm sure Elon Musk will be along with the historically accurate AI remake and Carry On films. No, I don't think Elon Musk has an appreciation of comedy. Anytime Elon Musk has spoken a joke, it landed like a fart in a room full of children. People giggled at it because it was so silly, not because it was funny. I mean, Elon Musk, it's interesting that the richest man is also one of the worst men in the world, and he's revealed that. And people are realizing it with increasing numbers. And he's one of the most carefully scrutinized people in the world. And there isn't one virtuous thing, one thing you can point to with Elon Musk to say that he did a good thing or he said a good thing or he was a good thing. There's no virtue at all in the richest man in the world, and that's a terrifying concept. DB Cooper says, for some reason, the local IMAX theatre must have that a 12-year-old adjusts the sound. It's set at painful levels. That's not good. Mystery Man says, Elon Musk making a movie he can't see beyond the end of his nose. Yeah, he wants to make an AI historically accurate version of the Odyssey. For a start, it's not history, it's fiction. And you don't need to do that. What he wants to do is he wants to do an AI version of the Odyssey with all white people in it. That's what he wants to say. And all white AI avatars who are pretending to be straight people. Adam says, he's like a trillionaire David Brent, but less funny. I mean, wealth can't buy character. It can't buy wisdom. It can't buy clarity of perspective. Franny says to Deb, she popularized it academically after Berger used it in ways of seeing. So we're talking about male gaze here. Dog says, Elon is good at spending others' money in return producing not ready for primetime products. Yeah, I mean, you got to remember too, Elon Musk didn't invent Tesla. He didn't invent SpaceX. He bought them from the people who developed them and then claimed credit for them. It's like me buying a whole bunch of Brett Whiteley paintings and a couple of Van Goghs and a couple of Fragonard and a couple of Mondrian and then saying that I'm an artist. That's what Elon Musk is doing. And people realize it. And the only people who are giving him any real power are people who want something from him, who want to suck at the tit and get a little bit of money for it. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, Elon Musk did invent one thing. He invented proof that doesn't matter how wealthy you are, hair plugs are not going to cover up you going bald. But yeah, the world's become a weird place. If you remember what we thought the future would be back in the day, it was either a post-nuclear hellscape or high tech with flying cars and jetpacks and universally available medical care. It was either Star Wars or Star Trek, and I'm very much in favor of the Star because I think that's the one that's kindest to the most. But it hasn't turned out like that. Looks like things are going a bit wonky on the stream. So let me know whether this is stable or not because I just got a notification. Franny says there should be more silver clothes. Not here because in the summer, the sunlight will reflect horribly from silver clothing. Dogstad says, any expectations on the upcoming Godzilla Minus Zero? I'm really looking forward to it. I think those guys do a hell of a lot with a little. And they're doing it from a Japanese historical viewpoint, which I think is really great because they're basically analyzing and contextualizing Showa era Japan in the context of a Godzilla movie from a modern viewpoint. I like that. I think it's really, really smart and beautiful and magnificent and awesome and scary. Um, Forsyth says, why is it the movie trailers in theaters are set to peak volume? And then when the main feature comes, you have to strain your ears to hear it. That may be a local phenomenon. I'm not finding that here, but they tend to be fairly good here with trailers versus cinema. Ralph says, I had a wonky moment, but good now. Thanks, Ralph. I appreciate the feedback. Dilly says, Star Wars is our future. We'll all be in rival cults fighting each other with flashlights. Yeah, that's my biggest critique of Star Wars. That binary morality, the black versus white. I think that simplistic viewpoint has pissed in the pool of science fiction for way too long. Adam says, have we had an optimistic science fiction film? Yeah, it's a lot of the Star Trek movies. Franny says, civilization was groundbreaking, but you have to be careful of the inbuilt bias of the conservative author. Yeah. Godzilla minus zero, black and white or color? I'll see it in color because the world's in color. I don't mind it if somebody makes a black and white version of a movie that's in color. I think there's room for both, and you don't have to pick a side. If they're going to make a black and white version of Godzilla minus zero, good. I'll watch the color version because my life and my world is in color. I'm not a dog. Yeah, you're right, Deb. Project Hail Mary is an optimistic science fiction movie. Forsyth says tribalism is a worldwide problem. Yeah, and I think sport feeds into that. There's so much bullshit with sport. There's in Australian rules football, there are people who boo one guy who's Indigenous, as it happens. One team they play against, his team, I think they're Adelaide, play against, will always boo this one player because 2 years ago he did something they disagreed with and their team lost a game. Like, that level of tribalism is just fucking horrible. I went to one AFL football game. I went on a date years ago and saw an AFL football game, the only one I've ever seen. And I was actually in the corporate box, which is really posh, and they give you food, and you're in a glassed-in box away from the crowds. And just outside the window, it looked like the island of Dr. Moreau. People are screaming and ranting and acting animalistically towards each other. So I ended up just chatting with my date in the back of the booth and having a good time sipping white wine and eating food and ignoring the tribalism outside the window. Dealey says Kenneth Clark was actually a lifelong Labor vote. He did have a Western-centric view on the series, but he admitted he didn't know enough about non-Western cultures. I mean, that's the thing. One of the great things about the internet is if you want to learn about other cultures, you can do it. And one of the ways to do it is look at YouTube channels from people from other cultures. And yes, you can get subtitles, which are fairly good. But if you want to learn about other cultures, movies help, and movies from other cultures help. But they're also almost, from our point of view, infinite resources to learn how other people live. And the more you do that, the more you find out the commonalities. Every kid plays with their mates. Every parent wants the best for their child, with certain exceptions. Every culture, when it isn't poisoned by certain politics, is about wanting the best for the future of the world. The commonalities reveal themselves, even though the history is different. The commonalities, and you get this when you travel too. The things we have in common always outweigh the things that keep us apart. Adam says, there wasn't much sport in the 12th century and we still at each other. Yes, there was. First Nations people here in Australia were playing games for the last 40,000 years, maybe 60,000 years. And there's evidence of that. They would make balls out of spinifex grass with kangaroo skin around them and play games then. Sport's been here a long time. Deb says, I love Aussie rules, but yeah, the booing of players for past stuff is awful. And there's also homophobic slurs and racist slurs that happen. It's disgusting. Deb says, when I lived in Melbourne, going to football was a safe way to release aggression. It's very gladiatorial. Yeah, it's I'm not keen on organised sports. If people want to do exercise, go for it. I don't need to watch it. DB Cooper says, religion may be the original team sport. It's very tribal religion. Yeah, we have the secrets to the universe. You don't. You're bad. You're going to die. Yeah, it's problematic, and I think you can have an awareness of cultural differences, and that's fine to do that, and I embrace that. Chinese New Year's great, Diwali is great. We have a big Indian diaspora community here. There are celebrations every Diwali. There are celebrations for a whole bunch of different holidays. There's Eid for the Muslim community here. There's holidays for white Christian people and just cultural holidays like Invasion Day and other public holidays and things like that. Just embrace them all. Just go, okay, cool. You're throwing powdered paint at each other for a holiday. Go for it. You're having a festival where you're having a month where you only eat certain foods after dark. I hope you're staying healthy. Do it, and then you're going to have a big party afterwards. And you have big group meals at night time after the sun sets. Go for it. Have fun. Respect, do the discipline thing. Have your beliefs. Go for it. Embracing other beliefs doesn't take away from yours. It just makes you a better person. Dog Stats says, sports are a business. Think rollerball, but even more Republican wrestling matches than the White House lawn. I agree, Dog Stat, absolutely. And the other thing for me is contact sports are dangerous. Chronic traumatic encephalography, where people do sports in their 20s and get knocked around a lot professionally. And by the time they're 45, they're starting to have dementia. That's monetizing brain damage at a core level. And there's lip service to it in a lot of sports. But it's dangerous. It's the same with the military. People get CTE from being around concussive explosives, and they also lose their hearing. We've got to look after each other a lot more than we do, and a lot better than we do. And entertainment shouldn't require people to damage themselves, mind and body, in order for people to be entertained. Mystery Man says, I don't know. Dance doesn't have to be top level for me. I love recitals. Seeing the common living out fantasies. I saw a man with club foot waltzing with his wife. Absolutely. We haven't progressed much since the Roman Colosseum days. Yeah, we kind of have, because we're not stabbing people with tridents these days, at least not publicly. Boxing is the worst sport on that level. Absolutely, Adam. It's we have the term punch drunk for a reason. And things like Requiem for a Heavyweight, Rod Serling's, was originally a TV movie and then it became a movie. It is about a man who got beaten like a gong in wrestling and he's trying to find a way to function. Sorry, in boxing, trying to find a way to function after his career's over. That's a really good movie with Anthony Quinn. And the guy has been diminished by taking too many knocks to the head. And there's a kind of tragedy about that that doesn't get recognized these days because MMA fighters are the new heroes for young men. And people like Conor McGregor, who was convicted of sexual assault, still gets to go on Jimmy Fallon's show and promote his stuff, even though he's a convicted rapist. That stuff needs to be addressed too. MMA is more vicious than boxing, absolutely. Rule number one, you don't talk about Trident Stab Club. You just did, Patrick. You've blown it, mate. Gladiator fights in basements. I've now had the lid blown off them. But yeah, it's there's so much in society that I would change were I able to change it. I'm going to go controversial here, and I'll risk it. I think circumcision's barbaric as well, unless it's being done for medical reasons. It's a barbaric practice to do to babies, and that's all I'm going to say about that. Adam says, "Have you seen Night in the City? Excellent London-based noir, which has a Greco-Roman wrestling scene." Yeah, Night in the City is great. I think, was that Jules Dessin? I might be wrong, but it might be. Mystery Man says, "Are you okay with colorized original creatures from Black Lagoon?" I think that would look awesome. I don't think it's necessary. I think it's finger painting. If you're going to spend money on a movie, make a new movie. Tell us a new story. Show us a new thing. Give us a new perspective. Don't just keep messing around with old stuff. I mean, restoration's another matter. If you've got a movie where the only existing print of it has scratches and cigarette burns and things like that, definitely restore and bring it up to 4K if you need to, without messing with the color grain. But you don't need to colorize movies. I want new things. I want original things. I want new perspectives. I want backrooms. I want obsession. I want interesting stuff. And I want young people to be able to have the space to tell their stories as well, and show their perspectives and show their talent and their art. Things like that noise ensemble I saw on Saturday night before the movie I saw. I want people to express themselves, and I'm going to embrace that. Dealey says the director made it in black and white, and that's how I want to see it. Absolutely. Mystery Man says black and white 3D is pretty cool. Saw it only once. Yeah. Dog says, "What? No special blend delivered to your door coffee?" I get that. I get a coffee subscription from Harley Coffee, and every 2 weeks they send me another couple of bags of coffee. I'm happy with that. Friday says it is barbaric. It's genital mutilation with no consent. The reason it was brought in as a medical procedure was prudery. It was to prevent masturbation. Why would you want to? Such fun. But yeah, it's a controversial opinion of mine. There are people who have certain religious beliefs who rail against it when I express that viewpoint, but without criticizing any particular belief system. That's what I believe. It is a barbaric thing to do to people. Sale says, being born in Germany, I was spared the knife, as well as I was too. But the percentage of people who get it done here in Australia is dropping a lot. And I just took a look at the latest statistics on religion in Australia. The two biggest religions are Protestantism and Catholicism. And between them, they have less of a percentage of the Australian population than atheism. Atheism is growing much, much quicker than anything else, and other religions are dropping. And we've got a census coming up this year. And my feeling is people with no religion are going to become an increasing percentage of our people here in Australia. And it's very much informed a lot of policy. And we really need to look at the fact that the majority of us are not superstitious at all. Kay says, glad I'm not circumcised now. Yeah. But that's the thing. There's a lot of dumb shit that happens historically. Adam says taking antidepressants kills the kundalini. I think antidepressants are important for a lot of people, but there are side effects of it. But I would rather people take antidepressants and be alive and be part of our lives than for them to not do it and end themselves. Friday says, I do have a friend who performed his own circumcision as he wanted a tattoo and it got in the way. Yeah, that's a little extreme for me. One slip of the knife and you suddenly, it's like slitting a sausage, I suppose. Kane says, atheists need to get together, form a church. No, we don't. We don't need to have organization. We just need to honestly express our feelings. And Friday says, that's not even the funny part of the story. Okay. So I did watch Africa Adio. I have watched that before. One of the things I will talk about with this is we had my friend Julia's funeral service this week. And I've talked about her in a previous video. And Sal and I were talking about this. And we had gone to a family member's funeral late last year, which was very Catholic. And the thing we noticed is the religious funeral we went to was about God much more than it was about the person who we lost. And Julia's service this week was 100% about Julia and who she was and how wonderful she was and how we're going to miss her. And that differentiation really defined itself for both of us. Whereas the first one with Sal's niece Steph, our niece Steph, was much about the church and the religion and the superstition. Julia's one was about Julia, and that helped the grieving process a lot more than the religious service we'd been to before. And it's just a really interesting differentiation there. Funeral services should always be about the person we've lost. Forsale says, yeah, a life celebration was the way to go. And it was framed as that. It was just so marvelous. And one of the things that surprised and delighted me was they did the video slideshow of Julia's life. And toward the end, Sally and I were in it because we went to Julia's last birthday party. And I wasn't expecting to see ourselves in this commemoration of her life, but we were there. And it touched me profoundly to see that. Kayan says, I'm a lapsed Catholic, very lapsed, yeah. Deb says, Vale Julia, I never met her, but she sounded like a person I would have really liked. Yeah, she was marvelous. And I think, leaving aside who the people were, I have more respect for services that are entirely about the person we lost and the people who love them. I think that just does so much to kick off the healing process and to let people, to the extent they can, come to terms with not having that person around anymore. And I don't buy into the childlike fantasies of an afterlife or anything like that. I think respect for who the person was is what matters, not what you think is going to happen in an ideal fantasy in the future. Adam says, so sorry, what will be the funeral music? What will be my funeral music? Mine will be the sound effects Death and Horror by BBC Radiophonic Workshop. I was thinking about this, and probably Scott Walker doing the funeral tango, which is hilarious. That'd be a good one to do. You should look that up afterwards. Look it up on YouTube. Scott Walker, the funeral tango. That would work. But yeah, I'm not going anywhere soon. I've got time to figure this shit out. But yeah, it's life, as Louis Armstrong and Louis Jordan said, is so peculiar. It's really weird. Um, Dog's dad says life celebrations honor the person who passed. Funerals are something other than that. The last one I went to was a widow to the widow. Used to be a self-promoting opportunity. Yeah, I think one of the I did write this up on my Facebook, which is locked for privacy, and I said funerals are where you see some of the best people you ever met under the worst circumstances imaginable. And I saw a lot of people I don't see often enough at that service, and all of us came together and caught up with each other's lives. It was just such a positive and intense social experience apart from anything else. D. Lee says, I have that collection of Scott Walker's Jack Brel covers. It's good. Yeah, the first three albums Scott Walker did are genius. Love them. Yeah, and yeah, I did catch up with a lot of people. I mean, one friend of mine I've known for 45 years, and she and I caught up and had a few jokes together, and I caught up with some other people, and they had some positive things happen in their life. One of my friends has a new partner, and that's going well for them all. Another one's moved into an apartment that he loves. Uh, Apart from the commemoration of someone's life, it felt so intensely, wonderfully communal to just hang with people that I really don't see often enough. Mystery Man says, sound is cutting in and out here in Devon, but I've been chatting with the chat. How about something uplifting that I'm looking forward to, says Dog's Dad. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the Spider-Man movie for odd reason. I need a good superhero movie to have a bit of fun with because it has been a pretty rough couple of weeks, to be honest. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to going for this walk tomorrow, the third walk, walking the upfield train line. And the reason I'm looking forward to that is I know there's a lot of bloody good coffee shops on the way down, and I'm going to get a couple of espressos. I may not even have one before I start the walk, and then go for the walk and just have 2 or 3 espressos walking down the train line through the suburbs of Melbourne. I'm really looking forward to that. Hopefully the weather holds up. If it doesn't, I'll still do it and then make that part of the story. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to cutting that video together because the walking vlogs are in some ways easier to edit than doing the movie ones. And I can experiment a lot more with them and with the format and time lapsing and all sorts of things. And that's, I'm looking forward to all that stuff. Deb says, I've already told those who matter my music will be, amongst others, right in 2 by 2. Cool. What's more uplifting than a funeral and the sound of a head being cut off? Yeah, I don't go with that, but I understand what you're saying. Dog says, how many hats do I have and how many hats do you wear? I wear most of the hats I've got. I've got a tree full of hats here. Like, for instance, let's grab it. This one my little sister gave me, my Powerpuff Girls hat. I wear that in the summertime because I love Powerpuff Girls. I've got hats I was given by ABC Radio in Darwin when I was doing movie reviews for them. I got an umbrella hat that Umbrella sent me. Just lots and lots of hats. Kayan says, I like your driving at night video. I'm going to do more of that too as it gets more into summertime. 3 coffees will put the pep in yourself. Yeah, I've got an agreement with my doctor that I will drink only 3 espressos a day. And it's about right. It doesn't affect my heart rate. It doesn't affect anything else. I've had 2 so far this morning, so I'll get another one after I finish the live stream. But yeah, it's a pleasure. And part of it is when I get up in the morning and make my first coffee, there's a ritual with you hit the portafilter on the tamper, you wash the portafilter, you grind the coffee, you tamp it down, you put it on the group head, you extract the coffee. There's a ritual there that I find kind of grounding and satisfying. in the mornings. It's just one of those little live things that I like doing. Friday says Powerpuff Girls are awesome. They are. Bubbles, Blossom, and Buttercup. It's like Sailor Moon. I like Sailor Moon as well. But people think it's funny that a guy my age likes Sailor Moon, but I do. Adam says, switch to tea. Nah. Dogstat says, due to a triple bypass, decaf is a stronger coffee than I'm allowed to drink. Sorry to hear that you had the triple bypass, but the upside, I suppose, is there are increasingly good decafs these days, particularly in like freshly roasted beans that have been processed for decaf. So there is an upside. Kayan says, do I have the first coffee on an empty stomach? Yeah, doesn't affect me. Deb's looking forward to Spider-Man 2 and cautiously optimistic for Neuromancer and the Flanagan miniseries of Carrie in October. I'm still on the kind of fence about the Carrie thing because we've had a few different versions of that. But we'll see. Mystery Man says, I think I may have seen a Yankee Clipper seaplane in Godzilla -0 teaser. Do you think he's coming to the US? Plenty of social commentary potential. At the end of the trailer for Godzilla -0, Godzilla or Gojira is walking past the Statue of Liberty. So I'd suggest that, yeah. Friday says, I play complex board games, but I still love my Powerpuff Girls board game. Also, Undisputed Champion. Tell you, Friday, the one Monopoly set I've got is the Sailor Moon Monopoly set. And I love it. Kane says, I'm drinking a peppermint and licorice tea at the moment. It's like a Murray mint melted in hot water, if anyone remembers those. Cool. I don't mind a herbal tea, particularly if I've got an upset stomach. A peppermint tea or a ginger tea are potions that cure a lot of upset tummies. Adam says, can Godzilla punch the Statue of Liberty with those small arms? Oh, Christian, $2 super chat. Enjoy your walk. Thank you. Appreciate that, Christian. We were in a shop the other day, and there's a new Minions fart gun that shoots smoke out of the front of it. Sally won't let me buy it because she said it cost too much. But there is a new fart gun out there, and I'm keeping my eyes open. Dogset says, where's the air freshener? You can't smell the air around here. The air's pretty good. I used deodorant this morning. I haven't farted yet. But, yeah, so there is a new fart gun out, and I'm tempted. I'm very tempted to buy it. Deb says, I really love Sailor Moon. Used to watch it with my son when he was little. Yeah, I've got a lot of it on DVD. Not all of it because there's a ton of it. But it's a lot of fun. Kane says, where do you get the ammunition for the fart gun? Yeah, there's a new fart gun out in front of you. This one, it's battery operated. But I'm so tempted by the new one with the smoke ring coming out of it. Hey? What do you mean? Why aren't you letting me buy it? Yeah, she won't let me buy the new fart gun because you can do smoke rings with it, but also does fart smells. And so she's not letting me buy it. Adam says, maybe the Statue of Liberty is a sleeping kaiju. No, it's a present from the French that they probably really should take back. I've seen 4 Statues of Liberty. There's the one in New York. There's the one there was one on top of the Liberty Warehouse in New York, which is one of the smaller models made for the original Statue of Liberty, which is not there anymore. It was there in 1998. There's one on a little island in the middle of the Seine, not far from the Eiffel Tower. And there's one in Odaiba in Tokyo. And I've seen all 4 of them. Don't agree with Sally, Deb. I've got fart spray if it was that. There's maquettes in every state in the United States, says Adam, of the Statue of Liberty. Yeah, but I've seen the 4 main ones. The one in France and the one on the Liberty Warehouse were made by the same people who made the big one in New York. And the one in Odaiba is still pretty cool. And Odaiba's a cool place. But it was cool seeing 4 different statues of Liberty around the world. I don't think we have one here in Australia. We've got a big banana. We've got a big pineapple. We've got a big crayfish. We've got a big earthworm. We've got a big potato. Adam says, Paul Auster wrote a book about a man who was behind each one, I think. Mystery Man says, have you ever considered doing a documentary, Getting Quiet, Camera Poet, Indigenous Aussie? I'm not Indigenous. Guess what, people? No, every video I do is a documentary. Friday says, I'm not so down with the fire gun if it actually smells. Adam says, Moon Palace. Oh, cool. Anyway, people, we really must knock that naughty clock that says it's time to go. It goes so fast. Our time has passed, and we must end our show. So give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment when it comes up as a normal bit, and just give me a bit of a bump there. Thanks to everybody for being part of this. It was a really cool live stream. Had a couple of wobbles, but nothing fell off. Talked about a wide range of things, including movies. So thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it. D-Lee says, it's time for bed. Absolutely. Get some sleep. Have a lovely day if you're over on this part of the world. Have interesting dreams if you're not. And I'll catch you guys later, okay? Bye.